The orbital station Harmony's gate gleamed against the void, its crystalline spires reflecting the light of 3 nearby suns. Inside its grandest hall, thousands of beings from across the galaxy gathered for what the Council had called a historic event. The exhibition would showcase species from the most hostile planets, celebrating their integration into civilized society. Entertainment, education, and politics wrapped into one grand display. Captain stood with her team in the preparation area, watching the crowds filter into the arena-style seating. The venue reminded her of a circus tent more than anything dignified. Colorful banners hung from the ceiling, food vendors lined the outer corridors, and the chatter of excited voices filled the air. Children of various species pressed against viewing screens, eager to see the dangerous beings from savage worlds. "They're treating us like zoo animals," muttered Engineer, adjusting his equipment harness for the third time. He was a compact man with calloused hands and permanent grease stains under his fingernails. His eyes tracked the crowd with obvious distaste. "That's exactly what we are to them," replied Doctor, checking her medical scanner with practiced efficiency. Her black hair was pulled back tight, revealing the thin scar along her jaw from a mining accident years ago. Exotic creatures to be observed and discussed over expensive drinks. Understood their frustration. When humanity had joined the galactic community 2 generations ago, they'd been classified as a species based on Earth's environmental hostility. The classification came with certain assumptions. Other species expected humans to be savage, barely controlled, still carrying the violence of their brutal. The truth was more complicated, but the galaxy preferred simple stories. The delegation occupied the staging area to their left. Massive beings, each standing nearly 3 meters tall with thick gray hide and natural armor plating along their spines. They came from a high-gravity world where everything was a predator and survival meant being the apex hunter. Their leader, Commander, possessed claws that could shred steel and muscles dense enough to crush bone. The crowd whispered excitedly whenever they moved, clearly impressed by their physical presence. To the right were the beings whose chitinous exoskeletons gleamed with an oily rainbow sheen. They're bathed in radiation that would kill most organic life within hours. They possessed multiple redundant biological systems and could repair cellular damage faster than it accumulated. The scientific community found them fascinating. The entertainment committee found them visually striking. Humans were the third species present and could see the disappointment in many eyes when they looked at her team. No massive claws, no natural armor, no obvious biological advantages. Just 5 humans in standard pressure suits, looking remarkably ordinary compared to their fellow. Ambassador of the approached the staging area, his elongated form moving with fluid grace. They were one of the galaxy's eldest species, tall and willowy with luminescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions. Skin showed pale blue, which had learned meant polite disinterest. "Captain, your team is prepared for the first demonstration." His voice carried the musical quality typical of his species, each word carefully pronounced. "We're ready, Ambassador," kept her tone professional neutral. "Excellent. The Council has designed these challenges to be both impressive and safe. We want to celebrate your capabilities while ensuring no actual danger occurs." He smiled, a gesture that looked unsettling on features. "The audience is most excited to see how the 3 species compare. Quite the spectacle." After he left, former Marine Sergeant David let out a low whistle. He was the largest of his team, though still smaller than the average. Old scars marked his dark skin, souvenirs from combat drops on colony worlds. "Spectacle, that's what we are to them." "Then let's give them their spectacle," said quietly. "Play along, complete their challenges, smile for the cameras. This is politics, not combat." The exhibition began with environmental hazard navigation. Each team had to cross a 50-meter course filled with obstacles designed to simulate hostile planetary conditions. Extreme heat, toxic gas pockets, unstable terrain, and various other dangers, all carefully controlled and monitored. The crowd cheered as each team tackled the course. The went first, their massive forms moving through the obstacles with raw power, simply smashed through barriers that were meant to be circumvented. When toxic gas filled a section, they held their breath and charged through, their dense physiology requiring less frequent oxygen intake than most species. The crowd loved it. Time, 4 minutes, 18 seconds. They approached the course differently, using their natural radiation resistance and redundant biology to endure what would harm others. They navigated with precision, their multifaceted eyes analyzing every detail. When fire barriers activated, they simply walked through, their exoskeletons providing insulation. Time, 3 minutes, 52 seconds. Humanity's turn arrived. Led her team through the course with careful efficiency. They used tools, coordinated movements, and problem-solving rather than brute force or biological resistance, disabled several obstacles by hacking their control systems, found optimal paths that minimized exposure to hazards, provided physical support when heavy lifting was needed. They completed the course competently but without spectacle. Time, 4 minutes, 8 seconds. The crowd's response was polite applause, heard the murmurs, not very impressive, expected more from, rather ordinary, aren't they? The second challenge involved endurance testing. Each team had to maintain physical activity while environmental conditions gradually worsened. They excelled, their high-gravity evolution giving them incredible stamina. They performed admirably, their biology adapting to the changing conditions. The humans did well but again seemed unremarkable. They sweated more than the other teams, their breathing grew labored faster, and they lacked the obvious resilience of their fellow. By the evening of the first day, the betting pools heavily favored the for physical challenges and the for survival scenarios. Humans were ranked third in most categories. The exhibition had become exactly what feared, a circus ranking, a pecking order of species based on entertainment value. The second day began with survival skills demonstrations. Each team received a kit of basic materials and had to create shelter, tools, and resource-gathering equipment. The challenges were designed to be interesting without being genuinely difficult, showcases of technique and ingenuity. The team performed adequately. They built a functional shelter, created basic tools, and demonstrated water purification methods. The crowd found it educational but unexciting. Thus, demonstrations of hunting techniques drew more enthusiasm. This radiation-based energy harvesting was more scientifically impressive. Lunch break arrived. The exhibition attendees moved to dining areas while the teams rested in their staging areas. Sat with her team, eating standard rations and watching the crowd through the transparent walls. She could see families, diplomats, scientists, all treating the exhibition like a day at an amusement park. 2 more days of this, said, staring at his food without appetite. 2 more days of being someone's pet. It's good PR for Earth, reminded him. The Council wanted this exhibition to normalize species, make us seem less threatening. By making us into entertainment, shook his head. There are worse things than being feared. Was about to respond when the alarm systems activated. The sound started as a low pulse, then escalated to a wailing siren that filled the entire station. The lights shifted to emergency red. The transparent walls of the staging area suddenly displayed warning symbols in every major galactic language. The station's automated voice echoed through the speakers, calm despite the message it delivered. Critical emergency. Reactor containment failure in Sector 7. Radiation leak confirmed. Structural breach in Sectors 9 and 11. All personnel evacuate affected areas immediately. Emergency response teams report to Command Center. Was on her feet instantly, her team mirroring her movement. Through the transparent walls, she watched the dining area descend into chaos. The calm, civilized crowd transformed into a panicked mass. Beings pushed toward exits, knocking over tables and each other. Children screamed. Adults of species that had never known real danger simply froze, unable to process what was happening. The exhibition hall's organizers tried to maintain order, their voices barely audible over the alarms and screaming. Security personnel in ornate ceremonial uniforms stood uncertain, their training focused on managing crowds during peace, not crisis. Accessed her communication device, pulling up station schematics and emergency data. The information scrolled across her display, each piece of data worse than the last. Reactor containment failure meant lethal radiation flooding multiple decks. Structural breach meant vacuum exposure, decompression, potential hull collapse. The automated systems were failing to respond properly. The station's small emergency crew was overwhelmed. 40,000 beings lived and worked on Harmony's gate. 40,000 souls suddenly facing dangers they'd only read about in historical texts. Appeared at its shoulder, his own device displaying similar information. The containment field is gone. That's not just radiation leak, that's direct core exposure. Sectors 9 and 11 have lost pressure integrity, added, her medical scanner already switching to triage mode. Multiple casualties reported. Studied the schematics with a soldier's eye. Station security can't handle this. Look at them. They've never dealt with actual combat conditions. Made her decision in the space between heartbeats. She looked at her team, saw them waiting for her command, and felt something shift inside her. The performance was over. The careful political dance of appearing civilized and non-threatening no longer mattered. People were dying, and she had a team trained for exactly this situation. You're on reactor containment. Take whatever personnel you need and shut that thing down before the whole station goes critical. Her voice was calm, steady, the tone she'd used during actual combat operations. Set up triage in the main hall. We'll need to process hundreds of casualties. Breach response. Get into those vacuum-exposed sectors and pull out survivors. Her team didn't question, didn't hesitate. They simply nodded and moved, each member shifting into their crisis role with practiced ease. Watched them go, then turned to face the chaos of the exhibition hall. Around her, the other teams were still processing what was happening. Commander stood frozen, his predator instincts useless against invisible radiation and vacuum. The clustered together, their collective intelligence trying to calculate proper response. The exhibition organizers shouted into communication devices, trying to reach authorities who were too busy with the crisis to answer. Walked toward the command center, her steps purposeful and steady. She passed Ambassador, who stood in the middle of the panicking crowd with his skin flashing distressed yellow and orange colors. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Saw confusion and fear in this expression. He was seeing something he didn't understand yet, wouldn't understand until much later. He was seeing a human shift from performance mode to survival mode, and the difference was vast. The exhibition had been meant to showcase in controlled conditions, demonstrating their interesting abilities in safe, entertaining ways. But safety had just failed catastrophically. The carefully managed display had become something else entirely, a real crisis requiring real solutions. Reached for the command center's door controls, already calculating resource allocation, personnel deployment, acceptable loss ratios. Her mind worked through scenarios with cold efficiency, running numbers that would horrify the civilized species around her. How many could be saved? How many would die regardless of intervention? Where could lives be spent to purchase the greatest number of survivals? Behind her, the crowd continued to panic. Around her, the advanced species of the galaxy struggled to process danger they'd forgotten was real. Ahead of her, a crisis demanded immediate action. Captain opened the command center door and stepped through, leaving the exhibition behind. They'd wanted a showcase. They'd wanted to see what made humans special. They were about to find out, and she suspected they wouldn't enjoy the lesson. The station's alarms continued their mechanical wailing, marking the moment when everything changed. When the performance ended, and humanity showed what it really meant to be from Earth. When the soft stopped being soft, the command center erupted with chaos as entered. Station personnel crowded around display screens showing damage reports, casualty estimates, and system failures spreading through Harmony's gate-like infection through a body. Director, with 4 arms and a bureaucrat's sensibility, was trying to coordinate response through official channels, waiting for proper authorization before deploying resources. Bypassed him entirely, moving to the central console and pulling up tactical displays. Her fingers danced across the interface, already identifying critical points of failure and calculating priority targets. "Captain, you don't have authority to," Director began, his translator rendering his stress as shrill overtones. "Status," spoke over him, activating her team's communication channel. His voice came back rough, already breathing hard. "Heading to Sector 7 now. Radiation readings are off the scale, going to need shielding. Improvise, use whatever's available. Hull plating, water tanks, anything dense. You've got maybe 20 minutes before core temperature reaches cascade failure." "Copy that." No hesitation, no complaint, just acknowledgement and action. His voice followed. "Setting up triage in the main exhibition hall. I'm commandeering medical supplies from nearby clinics. We're going to need more personnel. The station's medical staff is scattered. Gather whoever you can. Train them on the spot if necessary. Focus on bleeding, breathing, circulation. Everything else is secondary." "Understood." Checked in last. Approaching Sector 9 breach. I've got 3 volunteers from station security. They're terrified but willing. Keep them alive if you can. We'll need all the hands we get. Paused, her voice softening slightly. "Be careful, David." "Always am." The lie was comfortable between them, an old ritual from missions past. Director tried again. "Captain, proper rescue protocols require authorization from the Council Emergency Committee. I've sent the request, but they need to convene and assess." Turned to face him fully for the first time. "Director, your committee will take 3 hours to convene, another 2 to debate proper procedure, and by then, everyone in those radiation-flooded sectors will be dead. I'm not asking for permission. I'm informing you of actions already in progress. This is highly irregular, the chain of command. The chain of command is designed for normal operations. This isn't normal. This is catastrophic systems failure with mass casualties. You want to help? Clear the corridors for emergency movement and get me a full inventory of available resources. Otherwise, stay out of my way." The command center fell silent. Other species didn't speak to officials this way. The civilized galaxy operated on consensus, committee review, proper channels, had just thrown all of that aside. But no one stopped her. Perhaps they were too shocked. Perhaps they recognized something in her tone, an absolute certainty that brooked no argument. Perhaps they simply had no better alternative. Commander entered the command center, his massive frame barely fitting through the doorway. His predator's eyes swept the room, assessing threats and finding none. "Captain, the delegation wishes to assist." Looked at him, calculating quickly. "Can your people handle hard vacuum?" "We can hold our breath for extended periods. Our hide provides some protection against pressure changes." "Not enough. Decompression will kill you same as anyone else, but I need you elsewhere." She pulled up a display showing the lower decks. "Structural supports are failing here, here, and here. Tons of debris blocking evacuation routes. Your strength could clear them." Studied the display, then nodded once. "It will be done. Take whatever heavy equipment you can find. Exoskeletons, loading mechs, anything that adds force. Move fast but don't take unnecessary risks. We need you functional, not heroes." The commander paused at that last word, his translated voice carrying confusion. Heroes. Dead people who accomplished something before they died. We're trying to avoid that. Was already moving on, pulling up more displays. Go. Left and could hear him barking orders to his team in his native language, harsh syllables that needed no translation. They understood direct commands. The delegation leader approached next, their multifaceted eyes reflecting the red emergency lighting into fractured patterns. We can help with the radiation zones. Our biology can handle your planet's background radiation, not direct fusion core exposure. Cut them off but kept her tone factual rather than dismissive. Your tolerance has limits and these levels exceed them. I need you for something else. She pulled up the station's environmental systems. Life support is failing in 17 sections. Your species understands redundant biological systems. Apply that thinking to mechanical systems. Find ways to keep people breathing while we fix the main problems. The processed this with their characteristic stillness, then their leader gestured agreement with a complex antenna movement. A sensible allocation of resources. We will begin immediately. As they left, felt director staring at her. She turned to find his forearms crossed in what she'd learned was a gesture of resigned acceptance. You're taking command of the entire emergency response. I'm organizing people with relevant skills to address immediate crises. Call it whatever makes you comfortable. The council won't like this. The council isn't here, returned to her displays. When they arrive, they can file whatever complaints they want, after we've saved everyone we can. His voice crackled through her communicator, strained with effort. I'm at the reactor core. This is worse than the readings suggested. The containment vessel is cracked. We're not just dealing with a field failure, we're dealing with physical structural damage. Closed her eyes for a moment, running calculations. Can it be contained? Maybe. We'd need to manually install emergency shielding. Problem is, someone would need to work directly next to the core to do it. Radiation exposure would be lethal within minutes. How many minutes? A pause. 5, maybe 10 if we rotate people in and out, but the cumulative dose would kill anyone who does it, I know. His voice remained steady. What's the alternative? Core breach. The reactor goes critical, takes out half the station. 40,000 casualties becomes 20,000 minimum. Then we install the shielding. I'll find volunteers. I'll find volunteers. Focus on the technical work. She cut the connection before could argue. Around her, the command center staff had stopped pretending to work on their own tasks. They were listening, understanding what she just agreed to. Send people into lethal radiation to save others. A death sentence volunteered for. Director's skin had gone pale purple, a fear response. Captain, you can't ask people to sacrifice themselves. There must be another way. There isn't, and I'm not asking anyone. I'm going myself. That's insane. That's necessary. Pulled up personnel files, looking for anyone with engineering experience and radiation training. The math is simple. My life versus potentially thousands of others. That's not even a difficult calculation. Your species, the director struggled for words. Your species thinks differently than we do. Yes, we do. Found 3 suitable candidates in the files, started composing a message requesting volunteers. We think in terms of acceptable losses. We calculate the value of lives spent versus lives saved. You find it disturbing. We find it necessary. His voice interrupted. I've got triage set up. Casualties are coming in. We're looking at hundreds of injured, dozens critical. I need more medical personnel. I'll send everyone with medical training your way. Do what you can. Always do. Paused. I'm having to make hard choices here. Who gets treatment first, who can wait, who's beyond saving. I know, make the choices. Keep as many people alive as possible. Some of them won't like my decisions. They don't have to like them. They just have to survive them. Understood what wasn't quite saying. The doctor was performing battlefield triage in a civilian population that had never experienced such brutal prioritization. People who expected everyone to receive equal care, immediate attention, gentle consideration, was having to tell some of them, no, wait, there's nothing I can do. The civilized galaxy wasn't prepared for such harsh mathematics. Communication came through with background noise of screaming wind and alarms. I'm at the breach in Sector 9. It's bad. Whole sections are open to vacuum. I can see at least 20 people trapped in compartments with failing seals. Can you reach them? Maybe. I'll need to cross exposed areas. Magnetic boots and a pressure suit won't be enough. The decompression effects. I know what they'll do to you. Can you save them? Another pause, longer this time. Yes, but I'll be in rough shape afterward. Made the calculation instantly. 1 person damaged versus 20 dead. Do it, but David, don't take unnecessary risks. Calculated risks only. Calculated, right. His laugh was dark. Like there's a difference when you're walking through hard vacuum with improvised equipment. There is. One gets people killed for no reason. The other gets people killed for a purpose. When did we all become so comfortable with dying? The day we joined the military and realized someone had to do the hard jobs. Now go save those people. The next 4 hours blurred into a controlled chaos that had experienced before, but the station's population had not. She coordinated from the command center, moving resources and personnel like pieces on a board, making calculations that became easier with practice but never stopped being brutal. Worked in the reactor core with 2 volunteers had found, a station engineer named, and a maintenance worker named. They rotated in 5-minute intervals, each taking lethal doses of radiation to install makeshift shielding around the damaged containment vessel. Listened to their communications, heard their voices grow strained as radiation sickness set in, heard them continue working anyway. Sent regular updates from triage. The number of saved lives grew steadily, but so did the number of those she couldn't save. Her voice remained professionally calm, but knew her well enough to hear the emotional cost beneath the words. Every person marked as 8 at its core, but she kept making the choices because someone had to. Made 3 trips into vacuum-exposed sections, pulling survivors from failing compartments. On his 3rd trip, watched his vital signs spike into dangerous ranges. Decompression sickness, nitrogen bubbles forming in his bloodstream, blood vessels bursting beneath his skin. He kept moving anyway, magnetic boots clanking against hull plating, dragging unconscious survivors toward pressurized areas. The cleared debris with brutal efficiency, their massive strength applied to problems that required it. Commander reported 2 of his people injured by unstable structures, but they continued working anyway. They managed to restore life support to 12 of the failing sections, their understanding of redundant systems translating well to station engineering. Throughout it all, remained in the command center, her voice steady over communications, coordinating everything. Director and his staff gradually shifted from shocked observers to assistants, beginning to understand how emergency response could work when time mattered more than protocol. 6 hours after the crisis began, his voice came through weak and shaky. Containment is stabilized. The core won't go critical. We did it. What's your radiation exposure? Asked, though she already knew the answer from his medical readings. Lethal, all 3 of us, and are in worse shape than me. We'll be dead in a few days without treatment, and even with treatment, he coughed, a wet sound that meant internal bleeding. Even with treatment, maybe weeks, maybe. You saved 20,000 people, maybe more. Yeah, worth it, I guess. His voice carried something between pride and despair. Weird how that works, right? Dying feels wrong, but knowing it mattered makes it feel less wrong. Had no answer for that. She'd send him to his death with a few words and a calculation. It was the right choice, the necessary choice, but it still sat in her stomach like poison. Get to medical. We'll do what she can. Copy that, boss. Returned from his final trip into the vacuum with 17 survivors and a body that was failing rapidly. His blood pressure was dangerously low, his oxygen saturation dropping, his skin mottled with subcutaneous bleeding. He collapsed in the airlock, and medical teams rushed to stabilize him. By the time the official rescue ships arrived from nearby stations, the immediate crisis had passed. 40,000 souls aboard Harmony's gate, 19 dead, including the 2 humans who'd gone into the reactor core knowing they wouldn't come back. Over 1,000 wounded. The rest alive because humans had made brutal calculations and followed through on them. Stood in the command center as the rescue coordinators took over, their fresh teams arriving to handle the cleanup and recovery. She listened to them compliment the emergency response, heard them marvel at how quickly the situation had been stabilized. They didn't understand what they were complimenting. They were praising humans for being good at dying when it mattered. The exhibition hall stood empty now, its colorful banners still hanging from the ceiling, food vendors abandoned mid-service. The arena where they'd showcased abilities seemed obscene now, a circus ring where they'd performed for entertainment, while thousands of lives hung in the balance mere kilometers away. No one was talking about the exhibition anymore. No one was comparing the strength of, or the resilience of, or the mediocrity of humans. They were talking about the crisis response, about the strange human captain who'd taken command without permission, about the team that had moved through lethal conditions like they were built for it. Received a message that the council wanted to speak with her. Not a request, a summons. She'd bypassed protocol, taken unauthorized command, made decisions that resulted in deaths. They wanted explanations, justifications, probably accusations. She left the command center and walked through the station's corridors, seeing the damage, the repair crews, the survivors being treated in makeshift medical stations. She saw species who'd never experienced real danger learning what it meant to barely escape death. She saw children who'd never known fear learning what nightmares were. And she saw her team, in medical, dying from radiation but stable enough to smile when she visited. Still working triage, her hands steady despite the exhaustion in her eyes. In critical care, his body ravaged by decompression but alive. They'd done what humans do. They'd calculated costs, accepted losses, and spent themselves to save others. They'd moved through deadly conditions not because they were immune to harm, but because they'd made peace with being harmed. They'd faced death not as something to avoid at all costs, but as something to spend wisely. The galaxy found it disturbing, found it simply human. She reached the council chambers where Ambassador and others waited. They wanted explanations for actions that seemed inexplicable to them, wanted to understand a species that thought so differently than they did. Would try to explain. She'd tell them about Earth, about humanity, about what it meant to evolve on a planet that taught you everyone dies eventually, so you might as well die for something that matters. She doubted they'd understand, but they'd asked for a showcase and they'd gotten one, just not the kind they'd expected. Not the kind anyone could forget. The council chambers felt more like a courtroom than a diplomatic space. Ambassador sat at the center of a curved table, flanked by representatives from a dozen species. Their expressions ranged from confused to concerned to something that might have been fear. The room's architecture emphasized their position above the speaker's platform where now stood, everyone literally looking down on her. She'd seen this intimidation technique before. It didn't work well on humans. Captain began, his skin showing careful neutral gray. We've convened this emergency session to discuss your actions during the crisis. While the outcome was ultimately successful, your methods raised significant concerns. Waited, she'd learned that silence often revealed more than questions. You took command without authorization, continued a delegate, their crystalline body refracting the room's light into sharp angles. You bypassed established chain of command. You made unilateral decisions that cost lives. 2 lives, said quietly, and the 2 volunteers who helped him contain the reactor, Yes, those deaths are on me. You speak of it so casually. This translator added harmonics of horror to their words. 3 beings died following your orders. 3 beings died saving 20,000 others. I'd make that trade every time. The room erupted in murmurs. Several delegates activated privacy fields to confer with their aides, raised one elongated hand for silence. That's precisely what concerns us, Captain. Your species approaches death with a calculation that we find. He paused, searching for words, deeply unsettling. You treat lives as currency, spending them to purchase outcomes. Yes, said simply, we do. How can you be so calm about it? A junior delegate spoke up, their skin flashing agitated yellow. Your own teammate died because you ordered him into lethal radiation. Doesn't that affect you? His jaw tightened slightly, the first crack in her composed exterior. It affects me deeply. Was a friend for 15 years, but my feelings don't change the math. Someone had to go into that reactor core and had the right skills. The alternative was thousands dead. That's not a difficult choice, even if it's a painful one. You make it sound so simple, leaned forward. But it reveals something about humanity that frankly frightens us. You've weaponized your own mortality. We've accepted it, corrected. There's a difference. Is there? A observer spoke from the side gallery. Commander still bearing wounds from the rescue operation. Captain, my people are warriors. We understand combat, risk, the price of survival, but even we don't think like you do. You sent your friend to die. With full knowledge, with calculation, you gave that order. How? Turn to face him directly. Commander, what's your instinct when you face a predator on your? Fight or flee. Assess threat level, determine survival probability, act accordingly. And if you determine you can't win and can't escape. Hesitation told the story. That situation should not arise. A warrior doesn't enter scenarios where both options are eliminated. Exactly. Your evolution taught you to avoid unwinnable scenarios. Earth taught us something different. His voice remained steady, but something in her tone shifted. Earth didn't give us the option to avoid. We faced predators we couldn't outfight. We faced whether we couldn't escape. We faced diseases we couldn't resist. We faced death constantly, inevitably, without mercy or exception. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's surface. Our planet threw everything at us simultaneously. Predators, parasites, diseases, weather extremes, geological instability, resource scarcity. We couldn't develop one survival trait to handle it because it was everything all at once, so we developed something else. The display shifted, showing human history in fast forward. Battles, disasters, rescues, sacrifices. We learned to accept death as inevitable and figure out how to make it matter. We created concepts like acceptable losses and necessary sacrifice, not because we're callous, but because Earth demanded we calculate or die. Every human culture independently developed philosophies around meaningful death because meaningful death was the only kind we could achieve. That's pathological, the delegate said flatly. That's survival. His response was immediate. Your species eliminated death from daily life thousands of years ago. Advanced medicine, stable planets, predictable environments. You forgot what it's like to live with mortality as a constant companion. Humans never had that luxury. Skin shifted toward contemplative blue. You're saying your relationship with death is purely evolutionary adaptation. I'm saying we grew up with it in our faces every day. A human child sees death before they're old enough to understand what it means. We watch people we love disappear forever. We feel our own bodies breaking down. We know with absolute certainty that we will die, not as abstract philosophy, as concrete reality. Pulled up more data. After first contact, you studied human brain structure. You found regions dedicated to mortality processing that don't exist in other species. We literally have neural architecture for accepting death. It's not a choice, Ambassador. It's what we are. And this makes you dangerous, said a new voice. A security analyst stood from the observer section. "Captain, I've read the reports from the crisis. You made decisions in seconds that should require committee review. You allocated resources without consultation. You assessed personnel value and determined acceptable losses. In military context, we call that command efficiency. In broader context, we call it threat assessment." Turn to face the analyst. "Are you asking if humans are dangerous?" "I'm stating that you are. The question is whether that danger can coexist with civilized society." The room fell silent, felt every eye on her, felt the weight of species calculating whether humanity belonged in their peaceful galaxy or needed to be contained, limited, controlled. She chose her words carefully. We're the species that invented mutually assured destruction and treated it as reasonable policy. We're the species that figured out how to split atoms and immediately wondered if we could use it to destroy each other. We looked at the stars knowing the void would kill most of us and called it exploration. Yes, we're dangerous. Then why should we trust you? The analyst pressed. Because we're also the species that runs into burning buildings to save strangers. We jump on grenades to shield people we barely know. We donate organs to people we'll never meet. We teach our children that some things are worth dying for, and the list includes protecting others. His voice strengthened. Our relationship with death goes both ways, analyst. We accept dying, which makes us dangerous. We also accept dying for others, which makes us valuable.